Hello and welcome to Spectrum TV News, a recap of major stories within the week. I am Francis Oyima Edet, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Tinubu urged Supreme Court to dismiss Atiku's appeal. Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly passes bill on financial autonomy. Plus, United Nations Human Rights Council prolongs Russia monitoring. We will bring you details of these stories and more in a moment. Many thanks for joining us. We begin the weekend recap news with the first citizen of Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu, who has asked the Supreme Court to dismiss the appeal filed by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and the People's Democratic Party (PDP) challenging his victory in the 2023 presidential election. The president described the appeal as abusive in nature and prayed for its dismissal. The president insisted that the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and his party failed to prove all the allegations and submissions at the tribunal. Tinubu submitted that the tribunal was correct in arriving at its verdict and affirming his election. He urged the apex court to affirm the decision of the lower court while dismissing the appeal in its entirety, as the same is lacking in merit and bona fide. Recall that Atiku and the PDP had filed a petition challenging the outcome of the presidential election, which was held on February 25, 2023. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has appointed Ola Olukoyede as chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC). A presidential spokesman during Galale announced this in a statement on Thursday. Galale explained that Olukoyede's appointment is for a renewable term of 4 years in the first instance, pending Senate confirmation. Reports say the leadership of the country's focal anti-graft agency has experienced shake-up in the last few months since the assumption of precedence on May 29, 2023. In the meantime, President Tinubu has sacked the chief executive officers of 3 agencies under the Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovations and Digital Economy with immediate effect. Executive officers and agencies affected include the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC), Professor Omar Danbata, the Nigerian Postal Service, Sunday Adepoju, and Nigerian Communications Satellite Limited took off on 12. This was disclosed in a statement by the President's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngalale. The new CEOs were listed as Aminu Maida, Executive Vice Chairman and CEO of NCC, Nkechi Egerton, Managing Director of the NICOMSAT, and Tola Odeyemi as Postmaster General of NIPAS. However, the door of Kashifu Abdullahi and Dr. Vincent Olatunji were reappointed as Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency and the National Commissioner of the Nigeria Data Protection Commission, respectively. Also approved for appointment is a new Special Advisor on Technology and Digital Economy, Idris Alu Bankodi. Away from that, former President Olusegun Obasanjo said that Africans have the capacity of solving the myriads of challenges confronting the continent. Obasanjo disclosed these when he hosted the All African Students Union, who paid him a thank-you visit at his penthouse residence at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, Abeokuta. A former president, while addressing the students' delegation, said the experience gathered during the resolution of the crisis spoke a lot about Africans having the capacity to provide solutions to their problems. He noted that one thing the continent should also learn from the achievements of cessation of hostilities between Tigray region and the Federal Republic of Ethiopia last year, November, is that Africans can provide solutions to solving African problems without relying on third parties. In a separate development, the Ministry of Communications, Innovations and Digital Economy on Friday opened the application process for the first phase of the 3 Million Tech Talents Training Program, 3TTT. The program is in line with President Bola Tinubu's vision of creating 2 million digital jobs by 2025, which is aimed at building Nigeria's technical talent backbone to power the country's digital economy and position Nigeria as a net talent exporter. According to the minister, the first phase of the program, executed in collaboration with the National Information Technology Development Agency (NITDA), would involve multiple stakeholders, including fellows, training providers, partners, and placement organizations, based on the framework co-created with key stakeholders across government agencies, training providers, educational institutions, development agencies, and the private sector. Reports say for the first phase, the scheme will focus on 12 technical skills, including software development, UI and UX design, data analysis and visualization, quality assurance, product management, data science, and animation. Others include artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning, ML, cybersecurity, game development, cloud computing, and DevOps. Adding that the 3MTT program application can be accessed via 3mtt.nitda.gov.ng. Meanwhile, the federal government, through the Minister of Works, David Umahi, has given contractors constructing federal highways 14 days to mobilize their personnel and equipment back to the site or risk losing their contract. The minister gave the warning during a meeting with all contractors handling federal roads in Abuja. He warned that any contractor who fails to comply with the directive and meet the deadline would be kicked out and replaced with other contractors. Umahi also told the contractors to desist from frustrating the plan of the government to using concrete technology rather than asphalt, stressing that the president did a concrete road in Lagos State.
Contractors that have 20 jobs and they have two equipment on site, it can no longer be the same. We have minimum requirement of equipment on site for a particular work. And if you don't have it, you will leave the site. Nobody can hold this country to ransom. Nobody. Our local contractors are advised to wake up. I did it in Ebonyi State. Every civil servant became an engineer. Our stakeholders became an engineer. We can do it again and again and again. But we welcome our expatriate contractors. We want them to respect us, to respect our culture. Because what is being done here cannot be done outside this country. They have to respect us. They have to respect the culture of this country. They have to respect the laws of the country. Many of the contractors that NMPC paid have not gone to site. Some got 33 billion. They have not been to site. And I want the stakeholders to know that it's about our country. It's about our children. And this is very important.
In the meantime, the federal government says it plans to rebrand the Federal Fire Service in the coming months. Speaking during the inauguration of 15 firefighting trucks and rapid response vehicles in Abuja, the Minister of Interior Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo said the service, when rebranded, would carry out rescue-related duties. Tunji-Ojo said the rebranding would expand the scope of the service through information collection, assess risks in various areas, and protect the health and safety of workers. Also, the federal government has announced plans to include families of Nigerian fallen soldiers and members of the Nigerian Legion among the beneficiaries of its Conditional Cash Transfer (CCT) scheme. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Beitai, disclosed these in a statement by her media aide Rashid Zubair when she paid a visit to the Ministry of Defense in Abuja. It is said the move was part of the desire of President Tinubu's administration to support the vulnerable former servicemen, widows, and the dependents of fallen heroes. She therefore sought for accurate data of the affected families of former servicemen so as to include them during the ongoing verification of the National Social Register. From the Green Chambers, now where the House of Representatives has screened and confirmed the presidential designate to the board and management of the Niger Delta Development Commission. The designates appear before the House ad hoc committee mandated to conduct the screening on Thursday. Recall that President Bola Tinubu had written to the House of Representatives to ratify the Niger Delta Development Commission's chairman and its governing board. Acting in compliance with Section 2, Subsection 2 of the Niger Delta Development Commission Establishment Act. Speaking within the course of the week, the chairman of the House Committee on NDDC, Ihateke Ibori Shedu, charged the designates to justify the confidence reposed in them by President Bola Tinubu. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has tasked the federal government to strive hard to enroll Nigeria's out-of-school girls by introducing free and compulsory education for the girl child across the country. This is equal to the adoption of a motion by Kafilat Obara, APC Lagos, on the floor of the House in Abuja in commemoration of the 2023 International Day of the Girl Child. She said the last survey by UNICEF revealed that 18.5 million children were out of school in Nigeria, 60% of which were girls. She said adolescent girls had the right to a safe, educated and healthy life, adding that investing in girls' leadership included creating space and platforms for girls to raise their voices at every level of policy making. Obara expressed concern over the high number of out-of-school girls that engage in drug abuse and other vices in Nigeria. In the meantime, the House of Representatives has summoned the Minister of Foreign Affairs Yusuf Tuga and the chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission NITCOM over the incarceration of Nigerians in Ethiopian prisons. The development was a sequel to a motion moved by Minority Leader Kingsley Chinda and others. Moving the motion, Chinda said 250 Nigerians are currently incarcerated in Ethiopia. According to the lawmakers, some of the detainees were arrested while using Ethiopia as a transit point. He noted that there is general victimization and maltreatment of Nigerians in the East African country. He warned that urgent intervention is needed to protect Nigerians in the country. The House therefore resolved that Tuga and Debiri should appear before the Committee on Foreign Affairs, Diaspora and Human Rights. Also, the House of Representatives has called for the arrest and prosecution of persons who run against traffic light signals and violate other road traffic regulations in the Federal Capital Territory FCT, Abuja. The House also urged the Federal Capital Territory Administration to deploy technology that will track and arrest violators of traffic rules and regulations in the FCT. It mandated the Committee on the Federal Road Safety Commission, FRSC, and the Federal Capital Territory to ensure compliance. These resolutions follow the adoption of a motion on the need to compel road users to obey traffic light signals and road traffic regulations in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, moved by Igariwe Iduma Enwo. To politics now, where Senator Ifeanyi Oba, representing Anambra South Senatorial District, has dumped the Young Progressives Party YPP for the All Progressives Congress APC. According to a letter read by Senate President Godswill Akpabio during a brief plenary session within the course of the week, Oba's defection was due to irreconcilable differences in the YPP. Oba, however, did not explain the irreconcilable differences. A letter further explained that Oba's decision is in the interest of his constituents. Oba was the sole member of the YPP in the 10th Senate before his defection to the APC. In education, the West African Examinations Council, WAEC, has disassociated itself from a publication which claimed that Abia State was rated as the best performing state in the 2023 West African Senior School Certificate Examination, WAEC, for school candidates in Nigeria. This is contained in the disclaimer issued within the course of the week by the Council's Public Affairs Department, signed by the AG Head Public Affairs, Moyoshola Adesina, saying the claim was far from the truth. while further warned that any media circulating the wrong information should be disregarded. According to the statement, mischievous platforms which feed on controversies were trying unsuccessfully to drag the council into the political arena and bring its good name to disrepute. In the meantime, officials from the London Academy Business Schools and University of Sunderland are currently seeking approval from the National Universities Commission to run degree programs in Nigeria. A delegation from the University of Sunderland, led by Dr. Derek Watson, confirmed this after a meeting held in Abuja with the acting executive secretary NUC, Chris Mayaki. Watson, an associate professor from the Faculty of Business, Law and Tourism, assured that students in Nigeria would have the same academic standards as their counterparts in the United Kingdom, while the management at the same time promised to respect the environment and guidelines from the NUC. On security matters, troops of the Nigerian Army have killed no fewer than 50 terrorists or various ongoing military operations across the country. Director of the Defense Media Operations, Major General Adrot Buba, said while briefing journalists at the Defense Headquarters in Abuja that 114 suspected insurgents were also arrested. He explained that within the week, 19 suspected oil thieves were nabbed, while 49 kidnapped victims were also rescued by the troops. He stated that troops of Operation Delta Save uncovered and deactivated 53 illegal refining sites, recovered stolen products, pledging that momentum against crude oil theft in the Niger Delta region will be sustained. And back here, the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly has directed a matter of urgent public importance and the invasion of Akpamfrukum community in Uran local government area to the community on boundary and that of internal security to work in synergy. Salvage the dire situation in the area immediately and bring succor to the people. Presenting the matter on the floor of the House, the Uran State Constituency Representative Dr. Itoro said the House should intervene in the situation and direct relevant agencies of government to ensure restoration of normalcy in the affected region.
For the people of Uran State constituency. My speaker, this matter is pursuant to Order 2, Section 4 of the Standing Order on the matter of urgent public importance. I want to bring to the notice of this House, Mr. Speaker, that a village in my constituency, Akpamfrukum, has been invaded by the people of the Otukani local government area. I want to appeal to this House because currently they are scattered. They are not in one place. That the House, the Speaker, should direct the Committee on Boundary to make an on-the-spot assessment of the area and maybe also get across to the office of the Deputy Governor who is in charge of boundary matters to see how they can get assessment.
The Speaker of the House thus directed the Committee on Boundary Matters and other relevant agencies of government to intervene in the situation. Meanwhile, member representing a Tinan State constituency, Uduak Ekpo Fort, raised a matter of urgent public importance on an issue of land conflict and massacre in Ndoneyo. Ekpo Fort lamented that this is the second time he will be bringing up the issue on the floor of the House on the mayhems and violence going on in Ndoneyo and surroundings, so that relevant arms involved in security be invited to explain to the House what their plans are to bring respite to the affected region. Ekpo Fort also pleaded with the government to help the affected communities in terms of compensation.
Second call, just for records. After sacking Indonesia community, they moved to Indonesia.
cut the village heads, they cut the head of the village head, if I can say that. They cut his head, I mean, it's sad, you know. But if they can have this brazen impetus to cut a village head's head, then they put their hands on the seats of authority of the state. And I think that if we allow this trend to continue, we will see by December, Ndonoyo, Ndonutu, Otokan, and then hopefully, or not hopefully, somewhere in the Tiland. Realizing that it's our duty to speak for the interest of our constituents, Mr. Speaker, leadership, and distinguished colleagues, I crave your indulgence to invite the following entities to appear before this hallowed chamber and explain to us categorically what they've done and what they plan to do to ensure that this issue is brought to rest completely. The first person is Commissioner of Police of the state.
Meanwhile, in his reaction, the Deputy Speaker Kufrey Didem frowned at the situation where invitations will be sent to commissioners cleared on the floor of the House on issues of state interest, but they will decline to appear. The Speaker Udemeton later condemned the gory actions of the perpetrators of the mayhem, directed the Chairman House Committee on Security to be proactive in his move towards preserving the lives of citizens in the region. In the meantime, the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly has heard a motion for the construction of Okobodi-Okobo-Oyubia Road to restore economic activities to the affected areas. Motion was moved by Okobo State Constituency Representative Basi Pius Basi, who, in his presentation on the floor of the House, lamented the poor road condition in the area as well as the pause of economic activities in the area, hitherto known for its vibrancy. He said fixing the road will change the narrative that has been the route being turned to a den of miscreants and hoodlums for perpetration of various nefarious acts.
Others are women people of villages who don't from village. How can your village? I know you here. While the waiters for will benefit who know more. Who don't pay, who don't fear and the waiter. The course is for will benefit after women. Who you put on you, who you pass up. And of course you worry that scoundrels and criminals take advantage of this poor road. Non-resistance of law enforcement agencies to rob the people using motorbikes, rape young women, cut away valuable belongings of the people, and make life very meaningless. Seriously restored that if government does not take urgent action, the fate of the people who elected you to represent them in this annual chamber will be left in the hands of hoodlums and miscreants that have made.
The Speaker directed the clerk to write the governor with pictorial representation of the situation in the area, with the Commissioner for Works also in the know. Meanwhile, the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly also heard a motion for urgent intervention and reconstruction of Mount Carmel Hospital at Pautong, Afiafia. Leading proceedings, the sponsor of the motion and member representing Ibesipo Sultan State Constituency, Ubong Ata, underscored the importance of health and the responsibility of government in ensuring the well-being of its citizens. He noted that if the facility is fixed, the people of the area and indeed environs will be spared the pains of traveling afar in search of medical treatment, which sometimes result in other unforeseen tragedies, including accidents. He prayed that construction of the facility will be included in the state's budget, with relevant agencies directed to assess the situation at the hospital and appraise the intervention work needed to be done.
The attached pictures truly depict the present state of the hospital as a mere skeleton of its former flesh and glory. Disturbed that patients from these local government areas now resort to traveling long distances to St. Luke's General Hospital even under emergency situations, thus
resulting in high mortality rates, especially in accident victims and pregnant women. While my constituents highly appreciate, admire, and applaud the giant strides so far taken by His Excellency Pastor Moino in infrastructural maintenance to advancement of our state in general and EBT Washington in particular, especially by the flag of and speedy construction of the primary health center equal to hope. I wish to humbly, honestly, and immediately draw the state government's attention to the pitiable, contemptible, and despicable state of Mount Carmel Hospital at Norton.
Submission, the Speaker Odemetong acknowledged that health is very paramount to the state's constituents and directed the clerk of the House to also write the Governor, Pastor Omono, to ensure relevant ministries include renovation of the facility in their respective budgets for implementation. Meanwhile, the bill for a law to provide for the management of funds accruing to the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly from the consolidated revenue of Akwa Ibom State to ensure accountability, transparency, effective and efficient utilization of the fund and related matters has been read the third time by the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly and passed into law for assent by the Governor of the state, Pastor Umo Basi Eno. Leading the debate during second reading of the bill, which was given accelerated hearing, the sponsor of the bill, Otobong Bob, outlined the general principles of the bill and its inputs.
I think considering the urgency and the need for this house to have financial autonomy, I humbly ask of my colleagues to please support this bill to see the light of day, because I think it is one that won't just have immense benefit to the house, it will have immense benefit to the state, because a financially autonomous house will be a stronger house to defend the good people of Akwa Ibom State. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, I humbly ask my colleagues to please support this bill and let's.
In their contributions, members in favor of the bill led by the Chief Whip, Effiong Johnson, followed by the Deputy Speaker, Kofra Basi Edidem, commended the features of the bill, adding that it will, amongst other things, make funds available for the Assembly's general legislative functions. After subsequent dissolution of the House into a committee of the whole to consider the bill for third reading, Speaker Odemetong made pronouncement of the passage of the bill. Two other bills were read for the first time, including a bill for a law to amend the Akwa Ibom State Agricultural Loan Law Cap 11 by increasing the amount of money that may be granted as loans to farmers, corporate bodies and cooperative societies and for related matters. The second bill for the first time was a bill for a law to amend the Akwa Ibom State Cattle Control and Taxation Law Cap 24 laws of Akwa Ibom State by increasing the amount to be charged as tax on every head of trade cattle entering the state and for other purposes connected thereto. The House was thus adjourned to Thursday, the 19th day of October 2023. And still to come in the news, U.S. inflation rate higher than expected at 3.7%. To stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us, and now to the rest of our news stories. We move now to Africa, where the wife of Gabon's deposed President Ali Bongo Ondimba, under house arrest since a coup in the Central African country in late August, has been jailed. According to a lawyer from Koi Zimere, Silva Bongo Ondimba Valentine, suspected of allegedly embezzling public funds, was jailed late on Wednesday. Zimere condemned the arbitrary illegal procedure. Recall that Bongo's wife was charged in September 28 with money laundering, forgery and falsification of records. Sylvia Bongo has been under house arrest in the capital, Libreville, since the August 30, 2023 coup brought the cutting down on 55 years of Bongo's dynasty rule. Meanwhile, the Democratic Republic of Congo is warning that around 1.5 million voters living in areas controlled by the M23 rebel group will be unable to take part in elections in December. Government spokesperson Patrick Muyaya said they were in the process of resettling an additional 1 million people displaced by the conflict in the region. He added that it might be difficult for the Electoral Commission to assess areas under M23 and Rwanda, adding that calling off the election was not an option. DR Congo has previously accused Rwanda of backing the M23 rebel group, a charge that Rwanda has consistently denied. In the meantime, the UN peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo says it has suspended some of its peacekeepers in response to reports of serious misconduct. It said it had a policy of zero tolerance for sexual exploitation and abuse. Reports say the accusations are against 8 South African peacekeepers. The MONUSCO mission has faced previous accusations of sexual abuse. It has more than 14,000 troops in eastern DR Congo. In recent years, there have been several protests against the UN, which is accused of failing to protect civilians against attack by numerous armed groups. Elsewhere, President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa is ready to mediate in the conflict between Israel and the Palestinian territories. Ramaphosa is calling for an immediate ceasefire and says his country can draw on its experience of conflict resolution in Africa and beyond. The South African president said the atrocities against civilians were deeply concerning and called for the immediate and unconditional opening of humanitarian corridors to reach people in need. Meanwhile, electricity, water and fuel supplies to the Gaza Strip have been cut off by Israeli authorities, who say they will only end the blockade once all Israeli hostages have returned. Still in Africa, the authorities in South Africa's Western Cape province are searching for 6 prisoners who escaped from the holding cell of a magistrate court. Reports say one of the prisoners has been arrested, but the other 5 are still on the run. Authorities say that the prisoners, aged between 20 and 33, are armed and dangerous. According to reports, the prisoners were waiting to be transported to a correctional detention facility after appearing in court. Reports say a preliminary investigation suggests that the detainees overpowered one of the police officials and disarmed him. Several shots were fired in the direction of the police official, but no one was hit or wounded. Meanwhile, following their escape, the authorities have further charged them with escape from lawful custody, attempted murder, and robbery of a firearm. Meanwhile, the South African authorities say they have uncovered a coal smuggling syndicate that has played a major role in fueling the country's energy crisis. The South African Revenue Service, SARS, led what was described as a search and seizure operation across 5 provinces where the smugglers are active: Gauteng, Mpumalanga, KwaZulu, Natal, Free State, and Limpopo. The suspects include former employees of the state-owned electricity firm Eskom. A statement said the scam involved high-grade coal being sold off and replaced with a low-grade product which has been damaging power stations. Meanwhile, the issue of coal theft has been reported in South Africa's media for several years. It is widely felt that high-level corruption long prevented any action being taken to stop the scam. Still in Africa, Kenya's government has said that it will end a 6-year agreement that allowed more than 100 Cuban doctors to work in Kenyan hospitals. The country's health minister, Susan Nakhumicha, said the move will help address challenges faced by Kenyan health workers, including the lack of employment opportunities. Recall that in 2017, Kenya and Cuba established an exchange program deal in which Cuban doctors were sent to help fill the gap in county hospitals while Kenyans travel to Cuba for specialized medical training. In the meantime, a group representing small-scale farmers in Kenya has lost its court battle to stop genetically modified GM food being imported or grown in the country. The judge ruled that there was a lack of evidence to show that GM technology harmed humans or the environment, and said that Kenya had put in place a robust framework with inbuilt structures to keep people safe. The case had been filed by Kenyan lawmaker Paul Mwangi and a lobby group, the Kenya Peasants League. Last year, Kenya lifted a 10-year ban on maize amid resistance from farmers and campaign groups. It meant farmers could now openly cultivate GM crops, including the staple maize, as well as import GM-produced food and animal feeds. The move was, however, suspended following the court case on grounds that the ban was unprocedural and unlawful. The petitioners also argued that GM products pose a health risk to Kenyans, especially the poor. Elsewhere, Cameroonian authorities have denied abandoning victims of the deadly landslides in the capital, Yaoundé. The local administrator in charge of coordinating emergency assistance, Daouda Osmanoa, said people complaining of not having a place to stay had chosen not to go to the temporary accommodation provided by the government. Osmanoa told journalists that some homeless victims opted to join their family members elsewhere, while about 16 others were being taken care of at a center several kilometers away from the disaster site. Recorded landslides in a low-income Mbankolo neighborhood reportedly left at least 31 people dead and destroyed homes, displacing families. Meanwhile, the Constitutional Court in Madagascar says the presidential election is to be postponed by a week. Voting will now take place on 16th of November. Madagascar has seen a sharp rise in political tension, with supporters of opposition candidates staging protests over the fairness of the entire election exercise. Recorded last weekend, ex-president Marc Ravalomanana said he did sustain a leg injury when police and soldiers fired tear gas to disperse a gathering of his supporters. Still in Africa, it is still unclear what has happened to 2 Tanzanian students who have been missing in Israel since the weekend. According to officials, the pair have not been heard from since Hamas militants launched a deadly attack at the weekend. Tanzania's ambassador to Israel, Alex Kalawa, told newsmen that the 2 students cannot be named until their whereabouts are confirmed. In a related development, Egypt says it is directing international aid flights for Gaza through an airport in northern Sinai. A North African nation is a key mediator between Israel and the Palestinians. Meanwhile, Cairo has asked Israel to avoid targeting the Rafah crossing from Egypt into Gaza, which was bombed several times early this week. On a foreign scene, NATO countries have told Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, that they stood by his country after the attack by Hamas, but urged his forces to respond with proportionality. The Israeli defense minister briefed his counterparts from the U.S.-led military alliance via video link as his country's military carries out a bombing campaign after Islamic militant killed over 1,200 people, mostly civilians. According to Garland, the Alliance Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said NATO condemned the terrorist attacks in the strongest possible terms, adding that Israel is not alone. In a related development, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed concern about crossfire along the Blue Line. the border between Israel and Lebanon and called on all parties and those with influence over them to contain a spillover of hostilities. In a statement to the media, Guterres said he was in continuous contact with the leaders of the region in the Middle East in the wake of the new war between Israel and the Islamist group Hamas, with several priorities, first of which was to avoid a spillover of the conflict. Guterres reiterated his call for the necessary release of all Israeli hostages held in Gaza, estimated by the Israeli government at more than 100 people, and recalled that civilians must be protected in any conflict as dictated by international humanitarian law. He added that several UN employees have already paid the price of the conflict with their lives. Still on the foreign scene, the UN Human Rights Council has extended the mandate of its rapporteur on rights violations in Russia by a year in a second diplomatic defeat for Moscow in 3 days. The United Nations top rights body adopted a resolution brought by several European countries to prolong Bulgarian human rights expert Mariana Katsarova's work for another year. Reports say on Tuesday in New York, countries urged Russia bids to rejoin the 47-member Human Rights Council, having kicked Moscow out in April last year following its invasion of Ukraine. In Geneva, the UN's top rights body inflicted another diplomatic blow on Russia, passing the resolution on the special rapporteur by 18 votes to 7. Argentina, Britain, France, Germany, Ukraine and the United States were among the countries backing the resolution, while China, Cuba, Eritrea, Kazakhstan and Vietnam voted against prolonging Katsarova's mandate. Elsewhere, the EU's top tech enforcer commissioner Thierry Breton warned TikTok over illegal content and disinformation on his platform following the bloody attack by Hamas in Israel. The alert and a demand that Chinese-owned TikTok respond within 24 hours with details on how it is curbing online disinformation. Mirrored similar warnings Britain issued this week to X, formerly known as Twitter, and Facebook parent Meta. Recall that Act DSA legislation that came in 2 months ago requires them to crack down on content deemed illegal under EU law or laws of individual EU countries. Reports say violations of DSA can be met with mandatory remedial measures to hold such content or fines that could go up to 6% of a company's global turnover, or potentially even steps to ban the platform from Europe. Meanwhile, according to new data released Thursday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, U.S. inflation remained elevated in September as gas and rents keep prices high, heaping more pressure on consumers. The latest consumer price index also showed that certain inflation measures are the lowest they have been in more than 2 years. The consumer price index rose 3.7% for the 12 months ended in September, holding steady with August's annual gain and landing a touch above economy's expectations for a 3.6% rise. On a month-on-month basis, prices grew 0.4%, landing above definitive estimates for a 0.3% gain. Reports say although the annual headline inflation rate held steady, Thursday's CPI report also showed encouraging progress on areas critical to American households as well as the Federal Reserve. Meanwhile, the Russian ruble gained against the dollar after Moscow introduced a form of capital control in a bid to halt the currency's quick slide. Late Wednesday, President Vladimir Putin signed a decree requiring 43 large exporters, including big commodity producers, to sell foreign currency earned from overseas sales in the local market in exchange for rubles. Recall that Russia introduced a similar rule when the ruble was in freefall last year after the war in Ukraine began, but authorities later scrapped it as the currency stabilized. This year, the currency has tumbled on the back of rising war costs and failing export earnings. pushing the central bank to undertake an emergency interest rate hike. Meanwhile, a former federal lawmaker and social critic Shehu Sani has faulted the decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) to lift the ban on 43 items from assessing foreign exchange. Sani said these in a post he made on Friday via X platform formerly known as Twitter, where he noted that the decision of the Apex Bank would only worsen the economic situation of the country. Shehu Sani stressed that lifting of the ban on importation of toothpicks, cement and other agricultural products that we can produce at home is a disastrous economic strategy. A nation's scarce forex should be used to support local production, not importation. A new CBN boss should think of better ways, he said. Recall that CBN, in a major monetary policy shift, restored the 43 items which were banned from assessing forex since June 2015 in order to, according to it, sustain the stability of the foreign exchange market and the derivation of optimum benefits from goods and services imported into the country. And still to come in the news, Super Eagles held to a 2-2 draw by Saudi Arabia's Green Falcons in an international friendly. To stay with us. With the news stories. On World News, the World Health Organization (WHO) has reaffirmed its commitment to improving adolescents' health and well-being in the country. WHO made the pledge at the 2023 Virtual Global Forum for Adolescents event with the theme "And for Adolescents, a Future is Now." Speaking at the event, WHO's country representative Dr. Walter Kazadi said adolescent well-being is critical to achieving sustainable development and adopting a whole-of-government approach to address the multiple and intersecting factors that impact adolescents. Kazadi, who was represented by the Technical Officer for Child and Adolescent Health in WHO, Dr. Joy Ufere, said investing in adolescents and young people is a smart investment in the future of the society, economies, and the planet. Still in health, the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, says 98% of unvaccinated children were infected with diphtheria in 19 states. The minister disclosed these at the Northern Traditional Leaders Committee on Primary Health Care Service Delivery quarterly review meeting in Abuja. Pate therefore called for the implementation of a rapid vaccination campaign, stressing that the 19 states must come together to save the lives of vulnerable children. According to him, efforts were being made to ensure that the challenge would not linger, adding that a major milestone was the upcoming launch of the human papillomavirus vaccine in Nigeria later this month. To sport now on where the Super Eagles were held to a 2-2 draw by Saudi Arabia's Green Falcons in an international friendly match played at the Estadio Municipal de Portimao in Portugal on Friday. Nigeria came from a 1-0 down to lead Saudis 2-1 in the entertaining game, but Jose Pizarro's men left their opponents off the hook in the stoppage time to leave the game all squared. Reports say the Eagles started the game on the front foot and their high pressing got them a chance in just the second minute of the game as Napoli superstar Victor Osimhen flicked the ball on towards Samuel Chukwueze, who failed to control the ball and squandered the opportunity. Meanwhile, the president of the African soccer ruling body, Patrice Motsepe, has debunked the rumor going around that Ivory Coast will be stripped of their hosting right of the 2023 African Cup of Nations. Reports say the competition was supposed to be held this summer, was postponed to January-February 2024 due to some reasons, including the readiness of some vital facilities. In another development, UEFA has postponed Israel's EUR Open Championship qualifying game against host Kosovo that was due to take place on Sunday. The decision by European football's governing body comes after Hamas, an Islamic militant group that governs Gaza, launched a deadly attack on Israel on Saturday, prompting Israel to formally declare war on Hamas a day after. UEFA said in a statement on Thursday that the game in Palestine cannot be played because the Israeli authorities currently do not allow their national team to travel abroad. Israel are now 2 games behind schedule in a tight qualifying group where they compete with Switzerland and Romania for the top 2 spots. 2 teams advanced to the Euro 2024 tournament in Germany and are now due to play 3 Euro 2024 qualifiers in a 1-week international break next month, designed for just 2 games. Finally, in sport, Manchester United are ready to trigger contract extensions for Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Victor Lindelof, but club bosses are taking their time before deciding what to do about Anthony Martial. The Frenchman, who has a contract until the end of the season plus a 1-year option, endured an injury-hit campaign last season where he was only able to start 11 Premier League games. Reports say he has slipped behind summer signing Rasmus Hotland in the pecking order this season, scoring 1 goal in 9 appearances, and his situation at Old Trafford is complicated by being one of the club's highest paid players. On our entertainment news, Afrobeat singer Burna Boy has revealed why his management did not grant him access to his X account. The singer explained that his management team restricted his access to X to protect him from the constant harsh environment of the platform, as he has zero tolerance for disrespect. Speaking on Key's interview, Burna said things would get quite intense if he were to have control of his account. Meanwhile, American trap sensation Lil Durk has announced the remix of his hit single All My Life. According to the singer, the remix will feature new verses from Nigerian megastar Burna Boy and Stray Kids. Reports said the remix would be the 2nd time Burna Boy would be appearing on a song with J. Cole after the Grammy-winning music star featured him on his Thanks of his 7th album, I Told Them. Lastly, in the news, Nigerian rapper Skells is set to release a new single, Don't Say Much, from his forthcoming EP, Proof of Life. The song mirrors Skells' ambition and unshakable self-confidence. Produced by David Ace Keys, Don't Say Much arrives as the ultimate precursors to Skells' eagerly awaited Proof of Life EP, scheduled for an October release. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You've been watching Spectrum TV News, a recap of major stories within the week. I am Francis Oyima, edit. Many thanks for being there, and do enjoy the rest of your weekend.